You're attractive, successful, and emotionally aware. So why the hell are you still single? Here's a wild truth. It's not just about whom you're dating. It's about how you're dating. From your cling wrap closeness to the avoidant abyss. It might not just be them. It might be you. But we're going to help you fix that today on Off the Couch. And welcome to Off the Couch, where psychology meets everyday life. I'm Dr. Greg Cason, psychologist, here with producer Brian Gomez.
Happy Monday, you guys.
Hey, Brian. And also Tony Sweet on the board. Say hello, Tony.
Well, hello.
Oh, thank you. Very sexy. Well, today on Off the Couch, but before we get that, producer Brian just got back from Gay Pride.
Yes, happy Pride.
And I just, we're having like 2 weekends of it here in LA. We can't just have one. We have competing Pride celebrations. I really don't know why people do that. At least they could be more than a mile apart.
True, but one is enough for me. I am done. I feel like you can hear it in my voice.
But I saw my favorite picture from Pride. I just have to say this. It's a man sitting on the ground.
Yummy.
Surrounded by all these guys, shirtless guys with abs, which is essentially what a lot of people go to Pride to do, to show off. And he's sitting on the ground. He's eating a happy Pride cake with his hands and looking very distressed. And he is my spirit animal. So good for him, I have to say. But let's talk about today on Off the Couch what we're going to talk about. In this episode, we're going to talk about why you're still single even though you are a catch. We're going to talk about those relationship patterns, attachment styles, and self-sabotage, all the greatest hits. And we're going to help you to discover who you are. So we're going to talk about the hidden reasons people stay single even when they seem like a total package. But I want you, the listener, to think about this. This is a topic that we often can get into self-blame because we don't have what we want. We have what is. So we can self-blame. But I really want you today just to self-reflect. Be a little bit more compassionate to yourself and to listen and to know that I'm not going to be able to cover every reason. I'm just going to cover some major categories, and we're going to be talking about some things that get in the way of people having that mate that they've always wanted. Okay, let's talk. Brian. Brian is our you're what would you classify yourself? Because you're dating someone now, right?
Yes, I am.
Are you in a relationship?
I am.
So we can't ask.
Well, I mean, it's like history stuff. I mean, my past where I've been single. I've dated a lot of emotionally unavailable people as well. So I am aware of how that goes.
How new is this relationship?
Pretty new, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
we've been knowing each other for a few months, so.
Okay. But Tony, you are the exact opposite. You're an old married man.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
It's almost 8 years.
Almost 8 years, and for me it's been 36.
Oh my gosh.
So I mean, let's face it, we're a little long in the tooth when it comes to relationships. So what do we know about being single? Well, we made it through the maze. So I mean, that's what we're going to do, is to try to help people who are single to have something that's a little better. Let's start with the myth of the great catch. I think this is one of the biggest myths. We tend to think that being attractive and successful will get you what you want. So I have people, and okay, let's talk about why I wanted to do this topic in the first place. I was so affected by the work we did with the show about adolescence. And we talked about the manosphere. And we've done other shows talking about looks maxing, where these guys believe they have to look a certain way to attract women. I was so affected by the fact that they believe they have to act a certain way, that they have to be an alpha, that they have to drive a Ferrari, and that will get them women, and that they blame women for not being attracted to them because essentially they're trying to react to their own negative view of themselves, that somehow they still don't measure up. And I'm like, dudes, the answer is so easy. And then we tied a show about avoidance. That was our last show. And we talked about some of these issues. And so I thought, wait a minute, we need to narrow this scope, because there's an issue out there. There are ways to meet people that the lessons are not as hard as you may think. But the fact is, people think that they have to be a perfect vessel in order to be in a relationship. And the reality is, and I learned this when I was working at the VA, I was doing couples counseling with homeless people. And I was like, well, there's always something for everybody. There's always someone for everyone. And I worked with purely schizophrenic people, so always at least one of the couple had schizophrenia. And what really impressed me about that is they had some of the core relationship skills and openness that requires you to have a relationship. They weren't perhaps the most attractive or the most successful, certainly. But they really did have some of the right stuff to be able to bond with someone. And I think we can learn from those. There is a resume trap we all waltz into. That's the good on paper. Do you know the good on paper myth, Brian?
Yeah.
What is that?
It's even, I mean, you could say good on the profile at this point because we're all pretty much using dating apps.
Oh, good on the profile. That's new to me.
Because there's like certain things you have to check off the list and be like, okay, that works, you know?
We used to call that, they check every box. That's what people used to always say. They check every box.
Like on Hinge, you guys know I'm big on height, so that's like the first thing I check. And then you got to check their like political views, and then what kind of relationship they're looking for, if they're open or just wanting something, commitment. Then you got to see where in town they live. You also have to look at the job that they're in. There's so many things, and then you have to go and vet like all the pictures, and then make sure it doesn't seem catfishy. If they have a pet, that's usually a good time. It's like all these little things. Yeah. So the resume still
you're really
works.
Picky.
I am.
I mean, God.
Even as picky as I am, I've still picked the wrong ones. So,
well,
shows you.
I mean, the one thing with that is that we, what I often advise on the dating profiles, that's so interesting. Well, it's what you're looking for there, right? But do you actually say that on your profile that I want only someone who meets these qualifications, or do you only use that in your search criteria?
I only use that in my search criteria.
Okay.
But I make sure that if I'm demanding and wanting all these things, that I am also being able to do those things, or I'm in that same position.
You meet your criteria.
Yeah, because that's what really gets on my nerves when people want like this huge trophy and like the perfect man, but like they're not working on themselves, they're not doing anything to better their lives or anything like that, which like kind of backfires.
No, if they want a trophy, they better have done the deed, like they done something to earn the trophy. I would imagine they won the event. The advice I give about that, that's why I was asking, with dating profiles, is to be specific about yourself on the dating profile so that people can use the search criteria to say what they want or don't want, so they don't waste your time. You don't waste theirs.
Yeah, even on mine, I made sure that like I have a little thing on like my old Hinge profile. I would say that I really like unhinged sense of humor. Because that is like a deal breaker. Like I need somebody that can laugh at my stupid jokes and just flow with it. So for me, that's a big one.
I haven't seen that sense of humor in action.
We'll talk later.
But the other thing I do advise is to be general about what you want, and you indicated that. But to stay and remain open to what other people present. The profiles, I think, tell you instantly this is not a good person to match with, or anyone who has rules about what they don't want.
I hate that. Like, that's just such a turnoff to say, I don't want this, or you can't be this. And it's like, well, it's just weird to even put that out there like that.
Right. It's their job to avoid you, not your job to avoid them.
Yeah. It's an instant block or remove, whatever,
Exactly. So good on paper doesn't mean someone's emotionally available, and that's what we're going to talk about. So even if you are the perfect person, it doesn't mean you're really ready for a relationship. And when you meet someone who seems perfect, doesn't mean they're ready for a relationship. So that's a different thing altogether. Also, there's a dating market mismatch, and we perhaps can talk about this. I see a lot of this happen here in West Hollywood, or we're in West Hollywood, but in LA in general, which is high standards, having really high standards, and cutting out people who might otherwise be really rather good because you want a certain income or a certain this or a certain that. And I actually I think it's good that people know what they want and go for what they want. So I don't have an argument about that. But as I'll talk about later, I do advise them not to use their standards as a way of cutting off other people. And you don't want to be too available either. So you do want to have some standards, but just not go around demanding people be more perfect than they are.
That is true.
We all have flaws. Okay.
How rude.
Let's talk about, though, we're not here to talk about other people, because actually we're here to talk about you. We're here to talk about the single person and what may be getting in the way. Now, I've talked about attachment styles and why they might be kind of we overuse them. It's a little bit of a TikTok overuse, but I'm going to go through them nonetheless, and then we're going to tie them to an issue that, we really do see here with dating, which is there are 4 major types of attachment styles that we know about, which is 1, secure style, 2 is anxious style, or the anxious style. Number 3 is avoidant, and number 4 is the fearful avoidant, often called disorganized, the disorganized style, because that's what it feels like when you're on the other end of it. You're like, is this one of those push me, pull you llamas from Dr. What's his name? Dr.
Feel-good? No.
Doolittle. Thank you. I shouldn't say things unless I have it on the tip of my tongue, but I do it all the time. So that's what it feels like, a push me, pull you. So let's talk about the first one. Not the first one, secure. We're going to save secure for last. They're the most boring ones of all. Let's go to avoidant first of all. This is the avoidant person is the person, I'm too busy, or nobody's good enough. I don't know, they have brown hair, or they're too short, maybe, or something like that. Nobody's good enough. And often they're avoiding. What are they avoiding? Or I'm too busy. Do you know these people, Brian?
Well, sometimes I do have that little thing about me not wanting to date somebody too short,
But is it to stay away from a relationship? Because you seem like a relationship person.
I am, but I also have this little flaw where I'm like, in the picture, we don't look perfect. And that's a big problem that I also have, too.
What it looks like in the picture?
Yeah. Like if visually we don't match, which is so bad to say, but I'm like, I don't know. I have like a little thing where I'm like, I just want them around my height or taller. And height is just a big thing. I don't know. It's my preference.
Well, now you know, Tony.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm almost opposite.
Oh, you like them shorter?
I usually like them shorter than me.
You like to have them in the crux of your arm. Right?
Yeah. I mean, I have dated taller, but majority of the time they're shorter than me. And I always found that more attractive.
Yeah. And for me, it's like my height or taller.
But I guess I would not go out with somebody because they were taller, but I just
prefer. Yeah,
yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, I'm with someone for 36 years, but my very, very, very first impression was he was too short.
And look at you now.
Look at you now.
Yeah, famous last words. But I mean, I put a check on myself pretty quickly. I was like, that doesn't mean anything. And it's weird I had that thought.
Did he? I'm curious. Did he ever tell you like later? Did he ever have something of you?
He thought I was super tall, and back in the day, long ago, I really did stick out in a bar.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because most people, everyone's gotten taller. Like it's pretty common to see 6-foot people and higher, but there were times when I was like the only person as tall as I was. Or there'd be one or two. I used to joke when I go out dancing and I'd say, want to see, I go, watch, I'll go out into the dance floor and all the tall people will come dance with me. And I would go out into the middle of a dance floor because I noticed this. So I always like to amuse my friends because I go, okay, watch me. I'm going to go out into the middle and all the tall people will come out. And sure enough, other tall people would suddenly gravitate toward me.
Because giraffes.
Because they didn't want to stick out. Because it's weird when you're dancing and you're sticking out above like
that is true.
Shorter people.
Maybe that's why I don't dance. No,
but, you know, I didn't let that make me avoid it. Avoidant personality is someone who uses their busyness or that uses their standards or whatever to actually cut off other people because they say they want a relationship. And if you're saying you want a relationship, but you're not getting one because nobody's good enough, that is a problem. And that may indicate avoidance on your part, because maybe if they were, you'd have to get to know them, or you'd have to deal with your own prejudice, let's say about height, or you'd have to deal with your own stuff, and that's not always easy. So it's a lot safer to just stay back or to avoid intimacy.
Okay. Well, I guess in that sense, when you put it down like that, it's not like an avoidant thing for me in that way. I have given some short kings, a chance. It's just, I prefer tall. But I'm not avoiding like a relationship just because they're short or anything like that.
Well, that's good. Yeah. Number 2, is anxious. The anxious attachment. Can we put the picture again? Okay. The anxious attachment. This is the over pursuing or rushing intimacy. I call this cling wrap closeness. They want to really get in there. And this is the person who calls maybe all the time, etc. And it is interesting with this person. Sometimes they can be very attractive, especially to someone who's feeling quite insecure or very narcissistic. They like that attention that they're getting. Why are you laughing?
I'm not laughing. I just, opened my mouth a little bit because I was like, oh, that might have been one I have had in the past.
So they over pursue and rush intimacy, and basically that they want things to be more close together, and then honestly that type of person then often pushes the other person away. Disorganized style. This is the push-pull. I talked about this being the llama, the push me, pull you from Dr. Dolittle. This is fearful avoidant. So they're both fearful. So they fearful being anxious, moving in, but also avoidant. That's their fears also causing them to pull away. So they appear like they want to get close, but then once they do, they swoop out. And this can be really a problem for people and feel very confusing. But let's talk about the number 4 style, which is secure attachment. Secure attachments when you feel safe with both intimacy and independence. So we're, that's something that we want to aim for, and we'll talk about more how to get there. Also, there is a thing called repetition compulsion. This is not my term. It's an old term from psychoanalytic psychotherapy, where we have a tendency to choose familiar models, not necessarily healthy ones. But I would contend that it's not just a pathology. We all have a built-in DNA with relationship that causes us to be attracted to certain people with certain qualities. So understanding ourselves can actually help us avoid some of the biggest pitfalls without actually getting hurt. And often what the desire is to get some unmet need met. And you can only do that with people with a certain profile. So that's what often creates love and intimacy. And it also creates this you're never complete kind of dynamic. Like with your partner, Tony, do you guys feel like you're never quite perfect, or does it feel perfect all the time?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No. I think that's a healthy relationship
when
you realize that it's not perfect, but you
it's great.
Yeah.
You're content.
Yeah.
So what you're doing though, but you always have more to discover, more to know about the person.
Oh, yeah.
Closer.
We change as we get older.
We change as we get older. So all of that's extremely healthy.
In fact, Will, my husband, he when we got married, he was 26, 27. And he's changed a lot personality-wise on his own.
Oh, wow. So I brought a quiz for Brian.
I'm going to take a quiz.
God.
Okay.
Oh, my goodness.
I brought a quiz for Brian, and you know what? I didn't prepare, so I don't have... Where's my pen? Do you have a pen,
I
Brian?
do.
Okay, good.
Oh, I love to see behind the scenes.
We were talking about how over-prepared I am all the time. I wasn't that over-prepared with this.
Uh-huh.
Thank you,
Doesn't
Brian.
it feel get better?
I'm going to give Brian the dating patterns and attachment quiz.
Oh. I want to see him square.
Yeah, it's very easy, and you can take this at home. Number 1, I feel comfortable being close to others and depending on them.
Is this just in general or like with...
Yeah.
Okay. Oh,
Well, I mean, this is really with relationships.
Oh, so if I was in a relation, like...
Yeah, but let's just answer the question for what it is, yes.
Okay, just in general. What was it again?
I feel comfortable being close to others and depending on them. Don't worry, it'll get worse. It just starts easy.
That's the easy
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I can say that.
I can communicate my needs clearly.
I feel like we all struggle a little bit with that. So it's a work in progress on that one.
So no or yes?
Yes,
We have
but
to
it takes
land
me a
on
minute. It takes me a minute to warm up to
Yeah,
actually
I'll
say
give you a little bit
what I want
question
or
mark
feel.
there. And I trust others easily and feel secure in love.
Well, that's
That sounds like
up
a
for
no.
debate. I don't like to trust right away. I like to vet it out and feel it out first.
We're leaving that one open.
Okay.
How about the next one? I worry that my partner doesn't really love me.
Not in this one, but like that is something that does come up in relationships.
Okay. I feel the need for reassurance.
Yeah.
Okay. I get upset when I feel ignored or distanced.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
You
Oh, you guys are about to find out about me.
I value independence over intimacy.
That's like half and half because I feel like I want my own space too, and to do my own things. And,
Which one wins?
oh, I am a romantic, so I would want the intimacy instead.
Okay.
Yeah.
I pull away when things get too close.
No.
Okay.
I'm not that one.
I have a hard time trusting or depending on others.
So, in a general, with human beings, yes.
Okay. I crave closeness, but also fear it.
Yeah, because then, you get close and then it's a big heartbreak after if anything happens. So it's scary.
I feel overwhelmed or confused in relationships.
No.
Okay. I push people away even though I want them close.
That's not me.
Okay.
I just don't want them close.
What I gave you was the attachment style self-check. By the way, I'm going to have this on our show notes on YouTube. What is it? YouTube.com/Dr. Greg, DRGREG for this show. And this will be a show about, we're going to call it, Why Are You Still Single? Basically.
Did I get the anxious one?
Yes.
I know.
But you've got to, I think
it's a work in progress, and I've been working on it. Trust me.
So you knew that about yourself.
I did, because when you were putting him up, I was like, oh, I know exactly which one I am and what type of person I would usually go for. But yeah. So.
Well, excellent.
Yeah.
Okay. So.
Self-reflecting a lot.
No, that's very good. That's very good. Tony, what would you think you are?
I'm a man.
You're a dude.
Of which one?
The
Secure, anxious, avoidant, or disorganized. We didn't do the test with you. We probably should have.
I'd say at the beginning of our relationship, of the one I have now.
Yeah.
Secure now. I feel secure now. Because we're also best friends, which was my first time I've ever had a relationship that was my best friend.
Aww.
Yeah, before I think we just were boyfriends and dated, even though we were together maybe a while, I never really felt comfortable opening up. But with Will, I'm completely comfortable with it. But I would say secure now, but I would say more anxious.
More anxious?
When I first started with
Oh,
Will.
okay. Yeah.
I was more anxious because I also came out of a bad relationship, was single for about 5 years before I met Will. I was single on purpose. No dates, nothing. So I was anxious more like, do I let him in? Do I not let him in? So, but once I felt secure, it kind of just got better and better.
And I feel like that's how it works.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it's so funny. Well, I think I've talked in the past that I felt more secure. And it's really weird to me because if you looked at my background, my family upbringing, there's no reason for that whatsoever.
Yeah, same here.
I mean, but it's really interesting. Although I do have one anxious attachment. I get upset when I feel ignored or distant. I don't think anyone likes that.
I don't like that at all.
But, the other ones, I don't really see. Not as much, but the secure ones, feeling comfortable and close to others, depending on them, I can communicate my needs clearly. I don't know how the other person feels. I feel like I'm being clear. And then I trust others easily. That I do, and generally feel secure. But then, relationships still have issues.
Yeah, always.
That was
like
fun,
a
though.
season, right?
What? It's
The relationships are like seasons. They change.
They are like seasons.
Sometimes they get cold, and sometimes they get hot, and sometimes
but I prefer fall.
Yeah, me too.
I like it when the colors change and
That's
it's just
right.
pretty and the air's crisp.
Yes.
I like it a little chilly outdoors. That's my favorite relationship.
Me too.
I always think I lean a little bit avoidant. I always think I always test secure, but I lean avoidant. So that's just an interesting thing. Okay. I'm sorry to clear my throat so much. Okay, so self-sabotage is the next one. This is the love on the run. These are avoidant people, but let's talk about them very specifically because these are the people who kind of blow things up. They are the person who is only attracted to unavailable people, or they just avoid whatsoever, or they just throw a bomb into it. But let's talk about them. The person that likes unavailable people, I mean, I see this all the time where people will fall in love only with someone who is unavailable. What?
I'm sorry, I was just laughing because that's been me.
Oh, that's been you.
times.
Well, see, there you go.
Yeah.
But that's an avoidant trait.
Oh, yeah.
Well, okay.
I realized at some point I was the one that had an issue if I kept going for the same type of an emotionally, available guys. And I was like, wait, am I emotionally unavailable? And is that why I've been doing that? Or?
In the straight community, the gay community, what I see a lot is like gay men falling in love with straight men all the time.
I had a friend that always fell for straight guys.
Yeah, isn't
And I
that a
was
trick?
like, why do you do that to yourself?
This is why.
Yeah, that seems
This is
painful.
why.
And
They're self-sabotaging because they're safe to love because they can go for it. They can have all those feelings, all that limerence. They can have all that crush, but they know that it will never come back on them. They know that will never be intimate. So they kind of make it their work. They try to get as close to the other person, but they aren't under the same heat lamp that they're putting someone else under.
Yeah, I had a friend back in Kansas that was like that. I was like, why do you always do that? It's like, yeah.
Also, the person who just avoids, like I said, they just avoid it. They have beliefs like subconscious beliefs. If they really knew me, they'd leave. So they just stay away. Also, another belief that comes up is it's safer to be alone than to be hurt again.
Heard that many times from people.
Yeah. And if that's the choice to make, that's the choice to make. It is safer. It's just also you don't get as much good stuff either. Mm-hmm. So some people do prefer to keep their life in just a holding pattern. And I do think a lot of people, the thing is, we have a myth that you somehow need to be in a relationship, but being single can be just as satisfying, and people who are single can be quite happy. So I don't think that's a problem to be single. I think the problem is when we fool ourselves into say we must not be single, or there's something wrong with us if we're single, but then we develop these strategies to meet people who are not going to work for us. Also, this is the person who ignores red flags. We talked about red flags on another show. And when they see green flags, they're like, oh, no. What? They want to go out? They're available on Sunday?
They have a good job. What?
I'm not really attracted to them if they're so available.
Yeah.
I'm not really attracted to them if they seem to be a little too into me. They text me during the daytime. Don't they work? So, this would be something like a green flag we're ghosting.
I remember dating somebody years ago, and I thought it was going well. And then he ended up we were going to a party, and he's like, I think I want to break up. And I'm like, well, why did you take me to the party? He goes, well, I still want you to go to the party. And I'm like, why? About a year later, right?
Oh.
A year later, a friend of mine knew him, and he was like, yeah, Tony was just too nice. And I was like, huh, that's the reason? He goes, yeah, Tony was just too nice. So I guess he liked unavailable people.
He sure did.
Yeah.
Or maybe wanted you to put him down, and
I know. And I was not
that sort of
person.
thing. I know.
Yeah.
That's I would not encourage you to do that either. There's also the chemistry trap here with the love on the run. They're the people who are like, I feel so intensely that it must be a good relationship, even though they can see every red flag, like every warning sign, but they feel so intense. So that doesn't mean compatibility. Okay. Self-sabotage. Let's go on to number whatever it is. Cultural and social pressure. This is when we're trying to give in to the pressures of our parents and society. Boy, I hear this one a lot in therapy, which is really interesting. For the people out there who are from cultures other than America, other than the U.S., this is more common. But it also takes place in certain groups within the United States, but there's this demand to be in a relationship. Like somehow you are not a whole person until you're in a relationship. Mm-hmm. We often see that society glamorizes coupledom and stigmatizes singledom here in the U.S. But what happens is when this person is just trying to put a slot into a hole, they're dating to try to just please their parents, or they're dating because they think they should, then they could be putting so much pressure on themselves. Like I have to get married before I'm 25 so I can have a baby by the time I'm 30, and this and that. When someone does that kind of stuff, they're putting that pressure on themselves.
Luckily, we don't have to worry about the baby part.
But a lot of gay men do choose the baby. Of course, yeah, you don't have to worry about it, but then that is a value a lot of people have. And that's one that actually helps couples come together or go apart. I've seen that actually divide people up more times than I can say, straight or gay.
Yeah, because I would want somebody that wants kids too.
Yeah.
Yeah, or else it's not going to work for me. Because I want kids for sure.
Right on. So we often call this then we also see the pressure. I'm sorry, I'm going into the pressure that happens from apps. There's music coming up on the.
That's a siren.
Oh, it's coming outside. I'm having an attack here.
I can tell.
I think there are sounds coming from inside the studio. Maybe they could receive that phone call. Okay, that we often, when we have something like we get on the apps like you had, Brian, like on Hinge, and you go on Hinge, you go on all the other apps. All of a sudden, you have so many apps, so much decision. What is the effect of that, Brian?
You're going to go on a lot of dates.
And what happens?
I get tired.
You get tired. There's a thing we have in psychology called the paradox of choice. I hear clients calling it analysis paralysis when they can't land on the perfect decision. It's sort of like when you go to a ice cream store and there are 31 flavors, let's say, and then you're like, oh, let me taste that one. Let me taste that one. Let me taste that one. And then you're only going to get one scoop and you can't figure out which scoop to get. That is exactly what this is. This is the paradox of choice. The more choice you have, the more difficult it is. If you only had chocolate, strawberry, and vanilla, my guess is you'd have an easier time making that choice.
I think in our era,
yes,
because when we were growing up, there were only three TV channels.
3 TV channels.
And now there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and thousands of TV channels, and we can't ever find what we want to watch. And
that was with cable started. I remember doing that with cable.
But I feel it is harder to date because there's too much choices, because there's so many apps, and it's almost like ordering online. With even like for hookup sites. I mean, there's just so much that people just, I think, lose interest after a while, and
that's the danger.
Yeah.
I always say that there's no bad place because you still have to do the work. So you could meet in a bathroom stall, for God's sake. You could still have
good old days.
You still have to do the work. You're still going to have to go beyond that.
Right.
So in the apps, it just puts another step in between, and people think it's a great filter device and stuff. I think what it does is it facilitates people's social anxiety
I think so
because they really have trouble like saying hello to somebody. Like we used to always agonize about saying hello to somebody or going up to them or this or that. Now people have like, oh, I've liked your pictures, you've liked mine, we've talked. Then they're easy to approach. We already have this dialogue going, or we make a date to get together with them and see them then. But I think it does facilitate their social anxiety, but it doesn't necessarily help facilitate the relationship.
And I feel like a lot of people too, I don't know if they're just on the dating apps but not intentionally trying to date.
Oh,
that they're just swiping away.
You don't know how common that. I hear this in my sessions all the time. People are on the dating apps and they're looking. They just look at it like they're going to a deli and just looking or a bakery and just seeing the selections. They're not even intending to buy something. They just want to look.
Yeah, because when I am wanting to date, I will make intentional dates. Like, it's sometimes annoying where I'm like, oh, I booked like a whole week full of dates for dinners that I'm like,
oh my God.
Well, like not
that's
like
why
all
you're
at the
never
same time.
available when I call.
No, but if I'm intentionally dating, then I'm going to be like, oh, if I like the selections, I'm going to try them out, like you said, and see if like the dates go well, But I feel like a lot of people aren't going on dates or like actually using the apps for dating, other, like you said, they're just looking and swiping but never really making a connection or trying to make a connection.
Well, they often have that, oh, this looks good, but maybe the next one will be better, just like the ice cream example. Like, oh, I could get mint chocolate chip, but this flavor here, a snickerdoodle or whatever, oh, that tastes good. That's unusual. I want to get that. But then I would have to get the mint chocolate chip. I'd have to pass that up. People get land in that all the time. And again, they analysis paralysis. Okay. That sound I'm hearing is coming from outside the studio then. Okay. Just so you guys know, I'm hearing like this and that and like jackhammer and God knows what. But I'm sure it doesn't get picked up on the microphones. Okay, so number whatever. I didn't number these. The role of fantasy and idealization. Let's talk about that. Holding out for a perfect person. This is really when it gets into that dynamic. We date for potential, not for reality. Oh, this is one of my biggest peeves as a therapist. People are like, they are work in progress. I'm going to get them to be this place. I'm like, if you can't accept them where they are, chances are you're not going to be happy where they end up. You kind of got to start with them where they are. And if you can accept that person, you can then build the house. So I say acceptance is the foundation on which the house is built. Then you can work on the relationships. But it's got to start with acceptance. A lot of people want to build the house and then they'll find them acceptable. But that is like building on a shaky foundation and saying, well, I'll work on the foundation once we get the house built. That doesn't work in construction. It doesn't work in relationships.
I agree.
Okay. So don't date for potential, Brian.
I've learned my lessons.
Don't mistake lack of butterflies for lack of compatibility. So a lot of people think that you have to feel butterflies with the person. And in fact, that's not the case. And in fact, that helps us get together, by the way. Right. It is really nice that we can start to get together and to bond together, but it doesn't mean we're compatible.
I've also learned that lesson.
So then we want to go from stuck to secure. This is how we work on secure attachment. I know that we've talked about a lot of different styles today for you, and you may not even have seen yourself, but we need to look at these patterns to try to help you to become better. And that's that we want to work on a secure attachment style, which will make your dating life better and will make you more attractive. So how do you do that? Number one, I have a little checklist. Redefine your self-worth outside of the relationship status. So we often hear this kitschy little phrase, date yourself first. I believe that. You've got to be able to be the person. You've got to become the mate that you want to have, become the love that you want to have. That doesn't mean you want to marry an attorney so you become an attorney. I'm not saying that. But if you want someone who's professional, become professional. If you want someone who's a good provider, become a good provider. But if you want, a complementary relationship, like you want to be a stay-at-home mom and you want a dad who's out there working, then you want to become a great stay at home. That you want to be able to show the other person that this is how you can be, but also that this is a career to you too. But you want to date yourself first, and I think career is the least of it. I think you really do have to work on yourself to become just better, to become a kinder, better, more considerate and caring person.
Amen.
Period. And if you have anything ahead of the relationship, like drug use or alcohol use, those are like having a relationship with another person. And if that is the case for you, then that's going to get in the way of the relationship. It may not matter at first, but eventually it will. I'm saying abuse, really. I mean, you can have cocktail hour. So we also want to choose based on shared values, not just chemistry. So you want to share values with the person, not just feel good about the person, because that's really sinks so many relationships. Values are like the point on the horizon that you're always going for. You want to find somebody that you can support in their values, and you want to have someone who will support you in your values. But if you meet someone whose values you don't support or you don't respect, they're not a good match, no matter how hot you think they are. So if they want to devote their life to professional and you really want a family man, that might not be a good match. And even though they seem great in so many other ways, you can't change them, and you want them to support you. What if you want to become an artist and your partner doesn't want you to become an artist? They want you to focus on the home and you really want to paint. You have to find someone who will say, I think it's great that you paint. Here, I'm going to buy you supplies, and here we'll create a space in our apartment so you can paint, and have that person support your dreams. Does that make sense, gentlemen?
Yes.
I think that makes perfect sense.
The other thing I really advise that you do is to sit with discomfort instead of fleeing or clinging. People who have discomfort, they either try to cling to get rid of it, like, oh, I don't know if the person likes me, so I'm going to, call them 100 times or send them 45 texts. Not a good thing to do. But also could be fleeing. They didn't call me today, so I think it's over. So both of those are bad. So start now. I actually advise you do uncomfortable things in your life, not just relationships. Do uncomfortable things. Learn frustration tolerance. Exercise I give with my clients with frustration tolerance is to go to the grocery store and get in the longest cashier line.
Oh, Lord.
And go there. Hopefully they'll be writing
I
a
usually
check.
do anyway. I
Yeah,
always pick
go to the
wrong.
longest one. Also, when you go park in a parking lot, park in the very end stall, like at the very end. No matter if there are only 5 cars in the lot, park at the end and walk. Because what you're doing then is all of a sudden you're frustrating yourself just a little bit.
I just got frustrated when you said that.
Oh, yeah. And then when you get there, you basically build that muscle to be able to sit with frustration, because it's going to hit much harder. These are the light weights, because the big weights are going to be when the person doesn't call you. You know, for let's say they don't call you because of something happened, or they are having a problem with you. And to have a good relationship, you have to be able to sit with the person even when they're having problems with you. You have to be able to be there for the person. Also, you know, these are standard suggestions. Try therapy, journaling, and trusted relationships. Do we have time for anonymous questions?
We do.
Oh, my God. Okay, so I love that, you know, we were joking about my, it's in here, Brian. We were joking about my, it's right here. We're joking about my over-preparedness. But I've gone the absolute opposite direction with Brian. And we had here, those were the questions that people sent. Pick one or two and let's just answer.
Yes.
Okay, well, let's start with the first one.
Okay.
Is it me, or is everyone just emotionally unavailable?
You.
Me.
No, everyone is not emotionally unavailable.
That
to me is the person demanding everyone be available on their time schedule, in their way, instead of assuming that everyone is essentially emotionally available at some point, but they haven't necessarily found the dock for their boat, essentially.
But you don't think that person is emotionally unavailable if they keep only going for emotionally unavailable people?
It's a really good point. And maybe that is the case. Maybe they're demanding someone else be emotionally available under their terms because they don't want someone to get to know them, just like we talked about. Damn. Yeah. Oh, is that?
I'm just saying.
Okay.
I'm just saying. Like, that's deep.
Right. Do we have
No, I did have a time, a relationship that I messed it up myself by trying to be so perfect for this person, because I felt like if they saw any little crack or anything of like my full realness, that it would end. And yeah, it ended up ending, but I'm pretty sure that had a big deal to
But
do
let
with
me
it.
comment on that. It's actually really good for the person to know your cracks. To me, that's where intimacy is built. Is that they understand the pain that you're in. They understand the darkness sometimes. They understand that you're not always together. I mean, that's where intimacy is built. And if they run from that, then they are a terrible match.
Well, I told you guys too, I had an issue before even if I spilled water or making a little mistake, like it would be a really big deal for me. So I've had that issue where I've had to try to make myself be perfect and like not have anything wrong or flaws. But you're completely right. That's what messes it up. You know?
Perfect relationships are bad relationships. I try to tell perfect parenting is bad parenting. Well, that's another show. We'll make my case because I have a whole case about that stuff. But yes, we're built to be able to react to flaws, and it actually builds intimacy and gets us closer to someone else. It almost as if the crack gives an opening that you can get in deeper.
Okay, let's do another one. This one says, how do I break the cycle of chasing the same type that never works out? I know my type is wrong for me, but it's who I am always drawn to. How do I start dating outside my patterns without setting?
Okay, how do I start? I didn't look at these in advance, so how do I start?
It says, how do I
Dating
start dating outside my pattern without settling? Sorry.
Oh, without settling.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a bad clue. I never settle. That I never consider another human being settling.
No?
I honestly don't. No. What?
Oh,
I really don't. I think that basically someone is good for you or they're not. They're a good match or not. I don't think any human being has less value than another human being. And I don't think there's a settle. But, I mean, that's just me. I know I'm different. In the way you're reacting, you have a very strong opinion about that.
No, not like super strong. But, you know, sometimes I feel like there's levels of matchness. And I look at it like if somebody, say...
So if they're 5'11"?
No, like if you can just tell somebody as like this bright human being of a person, you know, that is with somebody that doesn't treat them like that bright star human being of it, you know, like they're not matching up or they're not treating them like that they are, you know, that's in the way that I'd be like, oh, well, you're settling because this person is around or is there or you somehow click, but it's not, you're settling, you know. You could have somebody that is treating you so much better or like a different way that you should be.
Read the question again.
How do I break the cycle of chasing the same type that never works out without settling?
Oh, well, I think, how we break a cycle, though, is to do something different. Basically, a cycle is when you're kind of stuck in an orbit. So the person needs to do a little experimentation and try something different.
And what if, like, when they do try something different,
it doesn't work?
Kind of like,
then you stick with it and keep going. You try something else different. You
don't jump back into the pattern. Right.
Well, they might because they're afraid and they know that works.
Yeah.
But if they really do want to change the pattern, then they have to start acting differently than they had in the past. So I would advise that person, to really look inside and say, hey, you know, this is something I can change. And you don't have to change that much. Generally, it's like one thing. Like just, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start giving people 5'11" a chance.
I have.
That would be a difference. But, you know, that type of thing. And, you know, the bottom line is, you know, we have to do something different. It may not work out because the person who's 5'11" was not a good match to begin with. But at least you're starting to expand your circle a little bit. The only way, when we get stuck in patterns, we're stuck in patterns. It's good for us. If it's not, that pattern isn't working for us, we need to change. And that change is going to be uncomfortable by definition. It's going to feel tough. You don't just have instant success, but eventually, if you keep working at it, you will have better success, and you can develop more positive beliefs about yourself to be able to do things. Does that?
No, that's great. I think that's great advice, honestly. And there are a lot of different types of people out there, you know, that when you do break the pattern or the cycle, it's going to be like jumping back into the water, you know, seeing different fish, you know.
In fact, for someone who's listening, if they're still single but they don't recognize, maybe they're single because they're kind of waking up to a new dynamic. Like they're looking, this is what I want. They maybe is stuck in their head and it's caused them to stay out of relationships, you know, like they're avoidant or something. But if they are wanting a relationship, they can make that shift. But that doesn't mean that they've necessarily are having a problem. That problem they have, as we've talked before with avoidance, is protective. So everything's protective. So they need to change their patterns to get them into a new way of being. So look at the patterns.
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to have this attachment quiz that we talked about in the show notes. We said at youtube.com/Dr. Greg. We are going to have, I think I'm going to attach a questionnaire to it too, so you can do homework to really help you think about your relationship patterns. Thank you for joining me on Off the Couch today. If you saw yourself in any of today's patterns, take a breath. You're not broken. You're just human. And remember, insight is the first step, but action is what moves the needle. So whether you're breaking a pattern, reaching out to someone new, or simply being kinder to yourself, that's the real work that we need to do. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with a friend who's still single or maybe is too much of a catch. And they just, you know, need to work on being less of one, I guess, or be able to, I wrote that, but no, the bottom line is that, you know, whatever they call themselves, but they're still single, it may be, if they really want to be with somebody, there is always a way. Cause I believe not only there is one person for all of us, there are like hundreds, thousands for all of us. I mean, it's amazing how many amazing people there are in the world. So we acknowledge that for ourselves, and then that way we can see it in others. So don't forget to rate, review, and follow Off the Couch with Dr. Greg on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Links to the studies we already talked about. I actually do have studies that go with this. You wouldn't know it from me talking. And the handout is on youtube.com/Dr. Greg. And until next time, keep questioning your own patterns and don't settle for the chemistry when you deserve compatibility. Hit us up on socials at Ask Dr. Greg. Until next time, Tony, Brian, and me bid you farewell. Until next time, be present, be flexible, and be kind.